Joe Biden has promised to make immigrants a priority of his administration. Roughly 700,000 immigrants are recipients of Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, also known as DACA, a program enacted back in 2012. It grants deportation protection for young undocumented adults with a high school degree or GED who were brought to this country as children.
Thousands of students eager to take advantage of what President Obama called a stopgap measure.
Biden was vice president when President Barack Obama enacted DACA. Since its inception, opponents have tried to block the program as much as possible. The Trump administration first tried ending DACA in 2017.
Without DACA, I can't even work. Pay tuition.
But federal courts blocked that decision for people who already had DACA status. In June 2020, the Supreme Court said that the administration acted arbitrarily and capriciously in its efforts to end it.
The Supreme Court ruling this morning in favor of DACA and in favor of 700,000 DACA recipients across the United States is very pivotal and crucial during these moments and times that we are living in 2020.
So the Trump administration put a pause on DACA in July, saying it wouldn't process new applications and cutting the renewal term for current DACA recipients from 2 years to 1 year, effectively making DACA applications twice as expensive. But in December, a federal judge in New York overturned Homeland Security's July memo, fully reinstating DACA to its 2012 form. When Biden takes office, he promises to expand the benefits of the program. DACA recipients would be eligible for federal student loans and Pell Grants. He also included them in his plan to make 2 years of community college tuition-free. Biden says that immigrants brought to the U.S. as children are essentially Americans.
They are Americans now. They should be treated as Americans now.
Considering the legal battles over DACA over the last half-decade, we can surely expect more of such moves. But what can Biden do about their pathway to citizenship? Well, not much on his own. Citizenship or permanent residence would have to come from Congress. Over the last 20 years, at least 10 versions of the DREAM Act have been introduced in Congress, giving permanent status to this group of young adults called Dreamers. But they've never had enough support in the House and Senate to be passed into law. Vice President-elect Kamala Harris recently said that the administration would be proposing an immigration bill that would provide immediate permanent residence to DACA recipients.
Allowing people who have temporary protected status and in particular Dreamers and TPS holders to automatically get green cards.
It's generally assumed that a pathway to citizenship would have to come as part of a broader, comprehensive immigration compromise that would include things like ramped-up border security and/or limiting the number of legal immigrants the U.S. allows. The AP reporting that Biden's legislative proposal would provide an 8-year path to citizenship for millions of undocumented immigrants, but it's not expected to include some of the trade-offs favored by Republicans. But with Democratic control of the House and Senate, we'll see if that immigration dream can finally come true.
All right, Shannon, we just heard the president's farewell address, a 20-minute long video, no short farewell there. What in that video most stood out to you?
Well, I think, Allison, this was as close to a concession as we're going to get from the president. He finally acknowledges that he will be handing over power to a new administration. He talks about praying for the incoming administration, wishing them luck. So acknowledging that his time has finally come to an end, quite different than when we saw him on January 6th talking about fighting and the election being stolen from him. Here, no talk about widespread election voter fraud. So it's one of the first times we have heard from him really since the election where his focus was not on the results of the election. Obviously, though, the president is reflecting on his time in the White House, talking about trips he has taken, talking about perceived achievements and accomplishments, the withdrawal from NAFTA, negotiations with China, progress made on the economy and with taxes were some of the things that he chose to highlight. But this was certainly the teleprompter Trump, the State of the Union Trump that we see every so often. This was not rally Trump. This was not tarmac Trump or, helicopter chopper talk Trump.
Right.
So this was your speech written by the speechwriters, the team. We know Jared Kushner has been heavily involved in all the activities going around at the White House, particularly in the past few days. So you can imagine he had a lot of influence on that. But, what does the president actually feel? What does he actually think? We may get an opportunity in the next 15, 16 hours, however is left, to hear that, because he will be departing from the White House tomorrow, where he'll have a chance to talk to reporters. He will make remarks at Andrews Air Force Base again, which are anticipated to be slightly shorter. And then he will have a chance to talk to reporters when he lands in Florida. So this may not be the last we heard from the president, but certainly this was his formal summation of his time in office and his acknowledgement, finally, that Joe Biden will become president very shortly.
Yeah, and as you referenced there, the lesser-known species, the stick-to-the-script President Trump. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about what tomorrow is going to look like. We know Vice President Pence is going to Joe Biden's inauguration. We also know that Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy will be going to church with Joe Biden in the morning. Will there be, do we know, any key Republicans at Trump's send-off ceremony tomorrow?
Yeah, we do not know at this point, and part of the issue with Trump's send-off ceremony is that it's over in Andrews Air Force Base, which is about 30 minutes from the White House, and logistically difficult to get to and from Washington, D.C. tomorrow with all the enormous road closures and blockades. So anyone trying to do work in Washington or trying to go to the inauguration, like top Republicans in Congress, it was going to be difficult for them to get to and from. The vice president will not be going to President Trump's farewell celebration, or whatever they're calling it, ceremony, I guess. And one of White House official told us that's because it's going to be too difficult to do both events. So I think it's going to be something to watch. The crowd tomorrow, who shows up for that. Obviously, the president has indicated to staff that he wants to see a big send-off with some military flourishes, and he is intentionally leaving in the morning to make sure that he can land in Florida on Air Force One, when it is still Air Force One, that presidential aircraft.
Shannon, we're, of course, still waiting on a pretty lengthy list, we think, of pardons from the president. What are you hearing from your sources about those? We know they have to come by tomorrow morning since he's leaving.
Right. Well, I suppose they have tomorrow until noon. I mean, we had been told at one point they could come on Friday night, last Friday, so 3 or 4 days ago now. So this has obviously been a very fluid situation with these pardons. We're told to still expect dozens of names that could be on there. There was a lot of talk at one point by the president to his allies and advisors about whether he should give himself a self-pardon. Our reporting indicates that he is not expected to pardon himself, but of course anything can change. He's also not expected to pardon his family members. And if these pardons go in the track record of past pardons, we'll probably expect them to include a number of high-profile names, friends, allies, people who've been close to the administration on there, rather than being heavily focused like we have seen in past presidents, like with President Obama, on nonviolent offenders who have applied for a pardon and tried to make the case that they have reformed and they should receive a commutation, some clemency from the president because of that.
Shannon, President Trump's leaving with some of his lowest approval ratings ever. Separately, our new NBC News poll says that 73% of people think that this country is on the wrong track. The president has talked about a 2024 run if he's not convicted by the Senate, if he isn't barred from running for office again. What are his advisors saying right now about another go at the White House?
Well, right at one point, there was the idea that on Inauguration Day, he would hold a counter rally and announce his 2024 run there. Advisors obviously have talked him out of that, at least for the moment. We'll see if he announces a 2024 run at the airport tomorrow, but we're not expecting any announcement to come on that. And, you know, Republican strategists, people who were involved in the campaign, they really did feel like after January 6th, the president destroyed any chances he had at another run. However, a lot can change in 4 years. Anything is possible, and we have seen this president at very, very low points before, only to sort of pick himself up and pick those numbers back up. Whether he'd be able to pick those numbers back up enough to be elected again in 4 years, I think that's a huge question no one knows the answer to right now.
Huge question, but Shanna, as you said, you just never know what could happen. You never know what could happen even tomorrow. We'll be watching for sure. Thank you so much.